Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of the Mystery of Midoriya Izuku. This will be Part 3, Chapter 3, entitled Day 2. Shota's day begins as it always does, his cat Bastard landing with pinpoint accuracy on his kidneys, yowling for food. In response to this demand, he curls tighter under his comforter, not even wanting to see what time it is. It was always too fucking early o'clock. Hizashi, the asshole, is in the shower, singing along to a song that's playing on his phone. Bastard continues to yowl in time with Hizashi's singing. Ugh, today is already making Shota want to crawl back in bed, even though he hasn't left its safe confines. Bastard makes his displeasure known, right near his face. Defeated as ever by his fat cat, Shota crawls out of bed and shuffles to the kitchen, with the smug Bastard trailing after him happily. He feeds Bastard, gets the coffee brewing, and squints in the morning light. The world feels peaceful. Despite the usual rude call to consciousness, Shota's body aches, but not in an overly bad way. Hizashi is safe. Bastard is content. His students, as far as Shota knows, haven't run amok in the night to do wanton property damage and or vigilantism. He'll get access to Midoriya's unrestricted file today, which will hopefully clear up Shota's questions. Shota feels Hizashi hug him from behind and leans into the touch. Everything feels as good as it can in Shota's world. He should have known that it wasn't going to last. The day takes a sharp nosedive when Shota approaches his classroom door. Someone is yelling, definitely, Bakugo. He sighs and opens the door firmly, making Aoyama, who's sitting in his seat and doing needlepoint, it looks like, jump. Shota's eyes scan the room. No one looks injured, thankfully. No one had escalated to physical violence. He turns to the far side of the room where Bakugo looms over Midoriya. Kirishima's hardened arms hold firm around the blonde as he pulls him back. Midoriya stares down at his desk, which now has 2 perfect handprints burned into it. Face blank, Ida stands in front of his friend with Todoroki flanking him. Uraraka has her hand on Midoriya's back, peering between Ida and Todoroki to glare at Bakugo. "What?" Shota asks, voice sharp over apathetic. "Is going on?" "Sensei!" Ida straightens, impossibly stiffer, his hand up to karate chop with emphasis. Uraraka-chan asked Midoriya-kun about his thoughts on the hero Scatterstar's debut. Bakugo became annoyed with Midoriya-kun's tangent and told him to shut up, using his quirk to burn Midoriya-kun's desk. Ida glares at Bakugo, who bares his teeth from his place in Kirishima's arms. Todoroki moves in front of Midoriya more, eyes narrowing. The temperature of the room drops sharply. "Shitty Deku just keeps on muttering all the damn time," Bakugo growls. "It was bothering me, and the fucking creep always does that because it pisses me off." Midoriya's knuckles turn white, but he continues to stare down at his desk. His eyes never move from the handprints. He looks not like himself. He looks like a doll, expressionless and emotionless. This is a learned response. "This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong," Shota's gut chants at him. "It's how Deku-kun thinks, Bakugo," Uraraka snaps from behind Ida and Todoroki. "You're literally the only one it bothers. Even Jiro doesn't mind it, and she has the best hearing out of all of us." Everyone turns to Jiro at that, who casually shrugs. Her eyes, however, look at Midoriya and seem to soften a bit in concern. She says, "Midoriya doesn't mean anything by it, and he tries to keep it down if he knows that I'm feeling overwhelmed, hearing-wise. He actually had some really good suggestions about how to, that's not really important right now." Shota closes his eyes, breathes in for 4 and out for 7. "Okay, time for damage control then." "Right," he says, opening his eyes. "Bakugo, detention, a week for unsanctioned quirk use in the classroom. You can help Powerloader clean up the wreckage from the support kids after school. I also want a 1,000-word essay about property damage and why heroes should avoid such acts due Saturday." Only Mahima knows the true depths of Shota's suffering. His students give him just as many gray hairs, and Bakugo reels back at that, like he wasn't expecting to be punished at all. Shota stares at him, daring him to say a word otherwise. "I warned you on the first day of school, Bakugo. If you read the UA student handbook, then you'd know. The first instance of unsanctioned quirk use in a classroom is a warning. Second is an automatic detention. It gets worse from there. I suggest you do a thorough reading later." The blonde grinds his teeth before shrugging off Kirishima's hands. "Fine," he hisses out, dropping onto the seat in front of Midoriya's, whose face is still that strange and sickening doll blankness. "This is wrong. Yeah, no, that's not going to fly." "Actually," Shota says before Bakugo could get settled, "you're switching seats with Todoroki for the day, Bakugo. Maybe some space with Midoriya will do some good for both of you. Ida, Yaoyorozu, if any of the other teachers ask, tell them I did the swap." He waits for their assenting nods. With the danger past, the students head to their seats. Bakugo stomps to Todoroki's desk as the red and white-haired boy switches Bakugo's former desk out for Midoriya's ruined one, with Ida's help before settling down as well. Shouta makes a quick note to get a new desk brought in during lunch. Quirks occasionally destroy desks. It's relatively common here in UA. There's always a spare at the ready to be brought in. Midoriya, meanwhile, stares at Shouta like he's never seen him before. It's balm because it shows something other than that blankness. He jumps when the desks are switched, but doesn't say anything. His green eyes are wide, knuckles no longer pale, but he looks like the world has been thrown off its axis. Shouta wonders just why Midoriya's looking at him like this. He did his job, what any teacher's supposed to do in this situation, what any teacher in UA would do in the situation. No one abides by bullying at this school. Bakugo, in Midoriya's surprise at the action and punishment from him, has worry flare even more than seeing Midoriya's perfectly blank face. He notices it. What is it? Oh, didn't Bakugo and Midoriya know each other before UA? Shouta casts the thoughts aside, for now, and turns to his class. Clearly, we need to do more training on negating property damage when using your quirks, Shouta intones. Go get your gym uniforms. Kaminari groans, and with that, whatever tension from the earlier outburst it lifts. Training done and his student safety in the care of Hisashi, Shouta heads to the design studio to inform Mahima of Bakugo's presence that afternoon. He pulls down his goggles, the closer that he gets to the studio, in order to protect his eyes from any explosion that could occur. You never know with the support students, who have a bracing philosophy of an explosion a day keeps the doctor away. Granted, Shota's own students are a bunch of little weirdos. He doesn't have any room to complain. As he prepares to open the door to the design studio, he hears cursing on the other side. It's enough of a warning that Shouta tucks and rolls out of the way as he hears the bang and the small-ish explosion as the door bursts open. He sees the girl with the pink dreadlocks that drove Ida insane during their match at the sports festival sprawl out in the doorway. She's sooty and grinning in a way that makes Shouta very glad that she's not in heroics. He may have tried to resign. Again. Hatsume, Mahima says, sounding like he needs a good stiff drink at 10 in the morning. Shouta understands that urge, despite not being much of a drinker himself. I'm begging you, please, give me like 30 minutes without an explosion. Hatsume cackles, sounding like a mad scientist from those terrible pre-quirk horror movies that Hisashi likes. It's the mother of invention, Powerloader-sensei. Just as he debates whether or not to leave and just come back later, Hatsume notices him. She leaps up to her feet. Her goggled eyes are on Shouta, more specifically his capture weapon. He steps back before she can paw at it. Capture weapon, she whispers to herself. Elegant in its simplicity with carbon fibers and steel alloy, but could be reinforced or electrified. Please don't, Shouta says tiredly. It works for me. 10 Million has a theory that you have a minor secondary levitation quirk, Hatsume continues as she bounces on her feet. Is that how the weapon floats? Because I think it could be nanotechnology woven into the metal and... Mahima, the prince he is, comes to get his wayward student. Hatsume, leave Aizawa-sensei alone. He doesn't want any updates to his gear. The girl sighs dramatically. Boring. If you want some electrified brass knuckles, then let me know, Goggles-san. Mahima buries his face into his hands as Hatsume goes back into the classroom. Aizawa promises that at the next staff gift exchange, he'll buy the man some quality alcohol, maybe a spa day. Only they know the true depth of the other's suffering when dealing with demonic children. Sorry about that, Aizawa. Everything okay? Todoroki didn't burn through another costume, did he? I thought we finally got it right for his flames. I need to talk with you, Mahima, Shouta says before Mahima could go on a tangent. Bakugo is detention with you for the next week. Unauthorized quirk usage during class along with minor property damage to a desk. I thought cleaning up the design studio would help. Bakugo? Oh, the angry exploding kid that the board had tied up at the sports festival? Shouta still wants to wring the board of directors' collective necks over that brilliant decision. He nods. Yes, he was involved in an altercation before class with Midoriya. Hopefully cleaning up after any explosions will make Bakugo think twice about using them in my classroom. You always did have a sense of poetic justice, Eraser. Mahima sounds bemused. I'm surprised you didn't expel him. Bakugo has potential, but he needs to get his damn temper in check. What happened with 10 million? Hatsume demands, poking her head around the corner. Her goggles are up, revealing her bright golden eyes. Is he okay? I offer to make his costume explosion-proof. That's right. Hatsume was on Midoriya's team in the cavalry battle. Shouta didn't know that the two of them remained friends after it. Midoriya's fine, Shouta answers, looking at the girl. Hatsume eyes him before nodding. There's an opportunity here. Are you friends with him, Hatsume? The girl beams at Shouta. 10 million and I are in a mutual beneficial partnership. He said that I can be his exclusive support designer when he becomes a full-on pro. Sometimes he gives me ideas for future babies as well. He knows a lot about quirks and pushing them in interesting ways, which makes much more interesting babies. I keep telling Piloter-sensei to snipe him from heroics. Shota's wearing his goggles, but he thinks that the look that he gives Mahima conveys his feelings on that subject. I can't steal a heroic student, Hatsume. Mahima sighs. It sounds like they've been having this conversation on and off since the sports festival. Not with that attitude you can't, she says brightly. Anyways, 10 million's great. None of the usual ego of someone with a super powerful quirk. He also appreciates the true brilliance of my babies. Shota nods at that. Good to know. Thanks, Hatsume. The girl heads back into the design studio. Mahima turns to Shota. Send Bakugo here after class is let out. I'll have a lot for him to clean up. A couple of crashes ring out. Mahima sighs and takes a deep breath in. He and Shota share a look of deep understanding. I should go handle that. Hatsume, no! Hatsume, yes! Yeah, Shota definitely is glad that he's not in charge of the support kids. There wasn't enough money in the world to pay him to deal with that daily headache. Mahima was a saint. As far as Shota knows, he, Hisashi, and Nezu are the only ones that know he's looking into Midoriya. Frankly, Shota wants to keep it that way. Sooner or later, he'll have a talk to the other teachers that have him. He's trying to figure out how to do so without involving Yagi. The thing is, and Shota will only admit this on pain of death, he likes Yagi. He still hates All Might because of the perpetual frozen-in-place smile that makes him want to break out in hives. Also, he thinks that having a singular pillar is a stupid fucking thing to do. People are fallible. Look at Endeavor. He's number 2 and a major asshole. Given the way Yagi is going, he's going to be number 1 soon enough, and he doesn't even want to think about the societal implications of All Might leaving the heroics industry because it gives him a headache. Either way, Shota likes Yagi because without all the airs of All Might around him, Yagi is someone that Shota could see himself being friends with. He's naive, sure, but he has a dry sense of humor, and on subjects unrelated to teaching, he's pretty smart. He holds a lot of respect for everyone and follows the golden rule of not being a major douchebag. The man is just a terrible teacher, though. He also has a special relationship with Midoriya. Nothing untoward, of course. Shota probably would have killed the symbol of peace himself otherwise. He's pretty sure that Todoroki is convinced that All Might is Midoriya's father, but if Yagi finds out about Shota's little investigation into his student, he'll tell the kid. That's why he's trying to avoid it. Otherwise, he would have gone to Yagi to get a lot of his questions answered. He might even still do that once he knows the sort of questions that he should be asking here to begin with. At lunch, Shota sits at his desk in the teacher's shared office, and he takes out a jelly packet. He watches Yagi for a couple of moments, reading what looks to be a cheap paperback romance novel and eating his dietary-approved foods for a person with barely a stomach. His eyes also look suspiciously wet as he reads. He cries at the endings, doesn't he? He seems like that type. Yagi. The blond skeletal man jumps, slams the book shut, coughing blood into his handkerchief. Yes, Aizawa-kun. Do you have any more doctor's appointments this week? If you need me to cover again, I will. Plus, those appointments take most of the day. Shota will have ample time to handle talking with his colleagues without worrying about it getting back to All Might and thus Midoriya. Tomorrow, actually, but after that it'll have calmed down. Thank goodness, it's a wonder I still have blood left in my body. I'll handle foundational heroics training then for my class. Thank you very much, Yagi says with a skeletal grin. I really do appreciate it, Aizawa-kun. I apologize that you and Khan have been having to keep covering for me. He looks so shamefaced that Shota feels a flare of guilt at using the man's situation to aid his investigation. He stamps it down, though. He's never been good at comforting people. That's always been more of his friends' area of expertise over the years. Still, he tries. It's illogical to apologize for your health issues. These appointments help you. Your health is important, Yagi. Yagi blinks. His eyes look ever more wet at that. Ugh, emotion. Shota has reached his yearly quota of tears by being Midoriya's teacher these past couple of months, and there's still more of the year to go. Thank you, Aizawa-kun. I think I needed to hear that. Shota nods and heads to his napping corner before Yagi does something like try to hug him. The room where the unrestricted records of UA Hero Course students past and present are is actually more like an underground vault. Nezu had actually upped the security and the records following the USJ, so it takes them 10 minutes, and Shota probably signing what's left of his soul away in order to get to the door. All the records are on paper. 2 people are needed to get into the vault, Nezu and the teacher that's requesting access. There's a quirk dampener around the vault. Shota will not be able to leave or take pictures of the file. It's immediate grounds for firing otherwise. If someone not allowed tries to break into the vault, it lights up hotter than possibly the sun, and it incinerates everything inside. You know the rules, Aizawa, Nezu chirps beside him. I'll be back in about 3 hours. If you finish earlier, then just get in contact with me so I can escort you back up. Shouta nods. Out of all the teachers at UA, the various heroics homeroom teachers have probably done this more often than most. He steps inside the room and the lights flicker on. Nezu disappears to go and get Midoriya's file. It takes a grand total of 3 minutes, leaving Shouta alone with the documents. All right, kid. Shouta mutters under his breath as he looks at Midoriya's nervously grinning face that's clipped to the front. Let's see what we've got. He barely gets past the first couple of lines on the first page. Name, date of birth, quirk activation date. That's where he stops. Midoriya got his quirk on the day of the goddamn entrance exam. Of course he fucking did. Shouta feels almost incandescent in his rage. If the room itself wasn't suppressing his quirk, he's very certain that he would have activated Erasure out of sheer emotion. He hasn't even looked at the other parts of Midoriya's file, because that's the only thought that he's had bouncing around in his head. Midoriya got his quirk the day of the goddamn entrance exam when he destroyed his zero-pointer and turned 3 of his 4 limbs to goddamn soup. Midoriya had only had his quirk for months, not even a year. No wonder he didn't have control over it. Why didn't the kid tell him? Why didn't his mother? Why didn't Nezu? Someone should have said something. Otherwise Shouta would have expelled a kid who recently got his quirk, a kid with heroic potential gone because Shouta didn't have all the goddamn information. He would have done Midoriya's training entirely differently. He would have handled the kid differently from the word go. Scratch that. He is going to do Midoriya's training entirely differently when he finishes this whole mess. He hasn't even heard of a quirk coming in this late. And he's had late bloomers in his class before. Shouta searches his brain because there has to be someone, somewhere, who may have had a quirk activate as a teenager. The oldest he ever heard of was a kid in, Portugal, who got its quirk at 10, and that's only because he never had a pineapple before. Usually if a quirk is late coming, then it's because the activations are weird. That's just how it goes, but that's why quirk counselors exist, to help figure out the quirk activations and help kids handle it. Midoriya's strength enhancement is powerful, but something should have shown up before then. There should have been some sort of indication of it. Someone should have registered something when he was a kid. It doesn't make sense. There's a doctor's note, which theorizes that Midoriya's body was attempting to protect itself from the power up until he built up enough muscle. It sounds plausible, perfectly passable even. Anyone who hears that explanation and knows what kind of damage that Midoriya's quirk can do will just nod and say, yeah, that makes sense. Then they'll go back to living their lives with barely another thought to it. Shouta, however, is not that sort of person. People look at him and think that he's a weird mixture of lazy and exacting, which in reality he digs and digs and digs until he thinks exactly that he's going to see the metaphorical molten center of the earth, and then he keeps digging more to get his answers. Aizawa Shouta is relentless in his pursuit of his goal, whether it be training the next generation of heroes or patrolling for villains. In Shota's paranoid brain, he hears the imaginary alarm bell flare to vicious and clanging life. It's a dual-purposed alarm bell when it comes down to it. The first alarm is, fuck, if Midoriya's quirk didn't emerge until the UA entrance exam, then the kid grew up essentially quirkless. Shouta keeps up with various statistics of anything that could impact his students, even tangentially, and quirkless statistics are, well, a horror story in and of themselves, especially in Japan, which has one of the highest rates of quirked individuals in the world. So fuck, now that that's a host of possible trauma and other issues for Midoriya, Shouta definitely plans on having words with Nezu. It certainly makes Bakugo's behavior on the first day, and every day since toward Midoriya makes so much more sense. Shouta now has a sneaking suspicion that Bakugo is Midoriya's bully, not rival as he previously thought. He's definitely making that seat swap between Todoroki and Bakugo permanent now. Fuck, he hasn't even read the rest of the file, and he feels like his entire perception of observations over Midoriya have been turned upside down. Meanwhile, that second internal alarm bell rings. Midoriya should not have a quirk. How did he get one? There's a ghost story in the world of underground heroics. Do you remember it, Shouta? Shouta takes a deep breath and flips onto the next page of the file. The alarms in his head do not cease. In fact, the deeper in Shouta gets, the more that seems to appear until his body feels like it's vibrating in time with them. A cacophony of imaginary noise that drowns out the entire world except his own breath and the beating of his heart in his ears. Wrong. Wrong, wrong. The way this child was treated is wrong. And he's going to make it right, because Aizawa Shouta is a hero, after all. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 3 of The Mystery of Midoriya Izuku. Hope you guys are enjoying this one so far. Chapter 4 will be next, and as always, thank you so much for listening.